Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to thank you for being here. I look out and I know that many of you were here with us last week when we stood with crime victims and their families, and we heard from those crime victims firsthand the impact of the failing policies that just aren't working to protect people. And today, we're standing with law enforcement, those people who are actually on the front lines, who are dealing with the consequences of those same policies every single day. I want to thank all of the sheriffs who have come from across the state to join us today, and also my colleagues from the Senate and the Assembly Minority Conferences. This is a part of our statewide effort to make New York State safer for everyone. And for many of us standing up here, that begins with passing the PROTECT Act and fixing the gaps that exist in our bail laws that allow dangerous and repeat offenders to be issued an appearance ticket and released. It's a revolving door that we have going on in New York State. And I want to begin by giving our members of law enforcement a lot of credit. I can't tell each and every one of you how much I appreciate your incredible service. Every day, the men and women in law enforcement, they do their jobs. They make the arrests, they take dangerous individuals off our streets. So it's got to be so frustrating for them to see time and time again those same individuals that they've arrested released right back into our communities. According to the National Conference of State Legislators, New York is the only state in our entire nation that does not allow courts to consider public safety when making pretrial decisions. That gap in our law is putting lives at risk. I want to share one more story with you. It's about Abigail Perez. Abigail was the mother of 3 young children. Her kids were 11, 8, and just 6 months old when Abby was brutally stabbed to death. Just weeks earlier, the person charged with murdering Abby had been arrested for assault, obstruction of breathing, and larceny. This guy tried to choke Abby to death. And guess what happened? He was released pending trial. And today, Abby is gone and her children are without their mother. That should have never, ever happened. And I personally blame New York's bail laws for contributing to Abby's death and the deaths of so many other New Yorkers. The PROTECT Act would finally bring New York in line with the other 49 states in our union and close the gap that allows these dangerous individuals to be released and reoffend. Under the PROTECT Act, it's such common sense, it's so simple. Judges would be required, to complete a standardized assessment to determine whether someone who's charged with a Class 8 misdemeanor or a felony poses a danger and should be held pre-trial. I just want to talk to you a little bit about how the PROTECT Act was developed. We worked with the Consortium for Safer Communities and a broad coalition of stakeholders. We had religious leaders, we had teachers, we had elected officials at every level, we had business owners. We had such a diverse group, and it was all led by Monroe County Sheriff Todd Baxter. So we listened to people, we listened for feedback on the PROTECT Act. We made so many adjustments. We collaborated like nothing I've ever seen happen here in Albany. And we put in place several critical safeguards that I think are so important to share with all of you. The first is that judges must base pretrial custody determinations on risk, not whether or not a person's able to afford to make bail. Every pretrial custody decision must be made within 48 hours to ensure timely judicial review. We didn't want people to be held for an indefinite period of time. The third safeguard is the standardized assessment will be developed by criminal justice professionals to mitigate any sort of bias. It'll be done by DCJS. And fourth, and this is also very important, the PROTECT Act supports mental health preventions or interventions. This is our 5th press conference in a statewide series. We've been in Western New York, we've been in the Finger Lakes, we've been in Central New York, we've been on Long Island, and now we're here at the state capitol. And our message is very clear, and it's widely supported. Close the gap and stop the revolving door. Pass the PROTECT Act and keep dangerous individuals off of our streets. Like I said, it's just simply common sense. Now I'd like to introduce Ontario County Sheriff David Serencione, who sees the impact of these policies firsthand, is going to share a few words with us. Sheriff?
Thank you, Senator Helming. I want to thank you for drafting this legislation with Sheriff Baxter's support. I want to thank the other members, your colleagues that are here with us, and my fellow sheriffs and their command staffs that have come to join us for a topic that we feel is so important. What I want to do is share with you a little bit of the frustrations that we feel on the law enforcement side in dealing with bail reform. Prior to bail reform, the police officers would have the discretion to make the determination if they thought somebody was appropriate to be issued an appearance ticket on site, or if they needed to be brought in front of a judge and let the charges be read by the judge, and let the judge make a determination if they needed to be placed in jail with some bail, at least for a limited amount of time to get some changes in place. That was completely taken away from us 6 years ago now with bail reform. We had no seat at the table to hear our input about bail reform and how we feel it would affect our communities. And now here we are 6 years later, and we can tell you firsthand that it has not helped matters for the public, and it's not helping matters for, there's a variety of parts of the population that are affected by this, including our people that end up incarcerated. Case in point, over and over and over again, our police officers run into the same people that are struggling with mental health and opiate addiction, that are stealing and committing property-level crimes to support their habits and because of the issues they have. In the past, the police officers used to be able to take them in front of the judge, explain that this person's been arrested several times, and the judge could put some bail on that person, put them in jail, and believe it or not, there are a ton of supports in our jails for people that are struggling with mental health and addiction. Today, we have to write them an appearance ticket literally at times when the police officer knows they're under the influence of heroin or other drugs when they're arresting them. They have to hand them an appearance ticket and send them on their way, and the cycle just continues over and over again. I have had a handful of inmates that, as they leave our jail, tell us, "Sheriff, it wasn't until I got into the jail that I got the help I needed." And with the appearance tickets, I was just going to stay out and continue to do what I needed to do to support my habit. We can get people real help when they're in jail and get them. We take a lot of pride in sending people back out into community in a better place than what they came to us when they arrived to us. So that's one. The other thing is, a lot of the domestic violence and assault cases we deal with are Class A misdemeanor level, an assault third, criminal obstruction of breathing. These are domestic violence incidents. Sometimes alcohol's involved, sometimes drugs. These, once again, officers are allowed to bring these people, these offenders, to jail for the purpose of having an order of protection issued, but then they're mandatorily released at the next arraignment on no bail. They just walk out the door. That doesn't do much for our victims that have finally come forward to press charges against their abuser. And when these people violate the orders of protection, guess what? We either have to give them an appearance ticket or we can bring them to jail, and it's another mandatory release. What we're asking, we're not asking to peel back all of bail reform. Just please put some discretion and some authority back on the hands of the judges to look at the totality of these cases and support our victims instead of the criminals. These people will reset when they're in jail. We can get some services into them. And again, as I mentioned, send them back out into society when they're in a little bit better place and there's been a little bit of a cooling off period. Right now, the police officers, the courts, we have absolutely no ability to do that. And that's not doing what we need to do to support our victims. And here we are in the month of Crime Victims Week. So we're just trying to get this message out, and would please encourage the people that are watching this, contact your state level assembly people and senators and encourage them to support this PROTECT Act. It is now my honor to introduce my colleague from Madison County, Sheriff Todd Hood.
These are lifelong lawmen and women in here, and definitely some great words of wisdom. Thanks, Sheriff. Senator, I want to thank you and Sheriff Baxter for all the work that they've done on this. This has been overwhelming for law enforcement when bail reform hit, and I appreciate so much. This is something that we can all agree on to do. And I hope this legislation passes. I said this is urgent legislation. Police are dealing with the same suspects time after time. Arrest, release, repeat again and again. Both of my sons are police officers. One was before bail reform, one came in after, and the one that saw the difference in the middle, he's just like me. This is overwhelming to our police. Our police are stressed, they're overworked, and the public is terrified and in danger when someone harms them and they're not held accountable and then released right back out. Criminals are emboldened and running wild. I don't care what the statistics you've heard, crime is up since 2019, 26% in New York State. That's from DCJS, those are the numbers. 26% crime increase from 2019 till now. We need to back our police officers and give elected judges the ability to put dangerous people in jail and protect New Yorkers from dangerous criminals. That is why they were elected by the people to do so. We're urging you to implement legislation S-228A, the PROTECT Act, to keep New York safe again. It's that simple. Hopefully we can all get on board in this. I've been across New York State in the past 2 months more than I've ever been in my life, and the one resounding thing is that people are fed up with crime in New York State. They want to change, and they want it now. So thank you so much. At this time, I'll call Sheriff Todd Baxter, the great sheriff from Monroe County, New York.
This morning in Monroe County, at the Monroe County Jail, we're holding 24 individuals on federal gun charges. That's a gun charge. Think about what occurs to put someone in jail on a gun charge. An illegal gun, it's a foot chase, it's a car chase, it's a police officer drawing their gun, pointing at some young person that's carrying an illegal gun. And because New York State will not allow us to incarcerate that young individual, give them a timeout like our parents gave us, and get them some intervention, we have to go to our federal partners, wake them up at 3 o'clock in the morning, the DEA, the ATF, a federal magistrate comes in, and because they have a dangerous standard. 49 states have a dangerous standard. The federal government has a dangerous standard. Why can't we have a dangerous standard to keep our public safe? That's all we're asking for. This bill is middle of the road. It's right down the middle of the fairway. It could not be any simpler. We put tons of thought into this to make sure it was equal, it was fair, but it put some teeth back in the system. If you look at Rochester right now, there's a video going around, one of these viral videos of a bar fight, 50 people melee, and a young lady gets smacked right in the face, hardest punch you could see. Appearance ticket. We apprehended the suspect. How would you like to be that young lady's parents and say, why is this guy walking the streets? We charged him with an assault third. Appearance ticket. This is not fair to the people that are victimized. This is not fair to domestic violence victims. This is not fair to our police officers that are working so hard at 3 o'clock in the morning chasing that young man with a gun. That's a bad story waiting to be had. That's pulling the trigger a second away with one bad decision. At least we could do is have the courtesy for the police officer to back them up and detain those individuals. At least we have the courtesy for the victims. And think about this, at least we have the courtesy for that person that's carrying that gun. We truly want to intervene and help that young person and get the gun out of his hand. We're not here to lock up young people, we're here to save their lives. PROTECT Act does that middle of the road. We're begging for backup. Please support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff Svencione, Sheriff Hood, and Sheriff Baxter. So you've heard directly from law enforcement about the consequences of our current laws and the need for change. You heard our sheriffs call on people to reach out to their state representatives and asking them to support the PROTECT Act. And as Sheriff Baxter alluded to, this is not a political issue. Preventing re-victimizations, keeping people safe, that should be the top priority of every elected official. We worked with people from both major parties to draft the PROTECT Act. I don't understand what's standing in the way from the governor putting the PROTECT Act right into our budget. I mean, they're talking about so much policy right now that's going to be put in the budget. What could make more sense than keeping people safe? The PROTECT Act. I just want to mention, too, for me, it's about keeping people safe. But the second benefit of the PROTECT Act is that crime costs money. Crime increases the cost of goods, the cost of insurance, the cost of small businesses, and everyone else. implement the PROTECT Act, and not only are you helping to save people's lives, but you're also helping to reduce cost. So again, I urge everyone in the public to reach out to the governor's office, to reach out to your state representatives, and tell them to pass the PROTECT Act. At this time, I do want to thank, again, law enforcement, the New York State Police, or the New York State Sheriff's Association for being here this afternoon, and happy to answer anyone's questions on the PROTECT Act.
Questions on the PROTECT Act?
Yes.
Question on, just a couple years ago, the governor, she held the budget, actually 2 years in a row, to tweak the bail law. And, I think in 2023, she said that she gave, the changes made gave judges more discretion. Has that helped or done anything? At all, anyone who wants to weigh in on that would love to hear.
I mean, I'll start, and I will start by a simple answer: no. It hasn't helped. Like, while it was a good effort to add more crimes to the list of bail-eligible offenses, we need to do more so that judges are following some consistent way of determining whether or not someone is a danger to themselves or others and should be held pre-trial. I had a conversation with some great representatives from the domestic violence space this morning, and they were talking about even being able to hold someone for 48 hours. That gives them time to remove someone who's in danger to find them a safer location. And when we're talking about how long a person should be able to be held for, I also heard from law enforcement how sometimes that 48 hours is just enough time to connect that person with other services, whether it's mental health or whether it's whatever other services. So we need to do more. I appreciate the changes. There have been like 4 or 5 changes to bail since it was initially passed, but this is a gap that still needs to be closed. I don't know if anyone wants to.
So my opinion is I appreciate what she did by holding up the budget. The overall tenet, the overall term in bail reform was release on least restrictive means. And one of the big fights is to strike that language out of her, which is about 10% what we wanted, but that's 10% moving forward. So I can't say anything but thank you. Let's keep this conversation going. It shows there's a need for adjustments. There was an agreement there needed to be for adjustment. There's no perfect plan ever created. And then a few more laws were added to bail-eligible laws, right? We're looking for one comprehensive program here, not a list of laws someone in Albany made up that could be irrelevant to the victim at any given time. They're the victim of the crime. That's what we forget in these stories. So we're just taking it across the goal line here, right? The goal line is a clean, comprehensive law that affects the individual, the person perpetrating the crime, as a holistic approach, right? Not this law, that law. And so this piecemealing is great. I'm glad we're making small progress forward. And I appreciate the governor for holding up the budget for that. I wish it would be held up again this for the PROTECT Act, right? That's what I'm hoping for. Because we're not there. We are definitely not there. Look at that assault victim in Rochester with the viral video right now. And that young lady deserves some justice or at least immediate consequences.
Samuel, Public Radio?
Yes, here's for the senator and anyone else. You mentioned requirement of 48 hours. Is there the capacity across the state to do that? Absolutely. If not, would
Yeah.
be needed to help?
Yes, I definitely believe there is the capacity across the state of New York to do that, and I see a lot of heads nodding in the affirmative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is urgent. Like I said, we're the ones that are dealing with this all the time, again and again, and we're responsible for the safety of New Yorkers. So when you have a bunch of sheriffs up here and police officers, this is important that we have this, that we have the ability to keep people in jail when we have a bad situation and we need to keep people safe.
Any other questions on topic? Okay, Senator, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Senator.
Thank you.